Hello everyone, welcome to Model Walk Explained. Today's story is called Vanity of Vanities. Our model will portray a queen from ancient times named Helena. After reflecting on the meaning of justice, I began repeatedly dreaming of a woman in magnificent clothing. The era she lived in was very distant, so distant that I could not even tell which age it was. But after dreaming of her a few more times, I understood she was the person closest to a certain thinker. I watched them talk at night. I watched the thinker repeatedly speak about how all effort, wisdom, and pleasure ultimately return to emptiness. Although I felt there were some points that could be argued against, overall I found myself agreeing. The woman rarely contradicted him, she simply listened. In that moment, I understood. Some people spend their entire lives trying to prove meaning, while others spend their entire lives admitting that life is empty. She lived in a quiet residence. During the day, the light was strong, and the stone steps grew hot under the sun. Servants moved with light footsteps. She often sat in the shade of the inner courtyard, holding a piece of unfinished embroidery, yet rarely actually working on it. Her name was Helena. I don't know how I knew her name. I simply watched her. Deep inside the residence lived a man. He spoke little. He often sat for long periods in shaded places, sometimes looking down at the ground, sometimes simply closing his eyes. People kept their distance from him, yet continually brought matters before him. Helena was one of the few who could remain in the same space with him for long periods. I watched their daily life. Sometimes they shared the evening meal with little conversation. Sometimes he would call her to him at night. The lamps were not high, and the shadows on the walls stretched long. When he spoke, his voice was not loud, but very clear. He spoke of the things he had once pursued. He said he once believed wisdom would lead to different results, so he observed, compared, and recorded. In the end, he discovered that the wise and the foolish all go to the same place. No matter how much one remembers, it will eventually be forgotten. He said he once believed pleasure was reliable. Wine, gardens, women, and all kinds of novel things could temporarily fill time. But after those things passed, the emptiness left behind had not grown smaller. He said he once believed achievements could leave traces. Building, accumulating, managing all of these could make a person feel they had done something. But when the wind blew, the names faded. They thought people would never truly care what those who came before had given. Most of the time, Helena simply listened. Occasionally, she would ask, "Then why do you still do these things now?" He would remain silent for a longer time before answering, "I don't know either. Perhaps I'm just still doing them." These conversations repeated. I watched Helena's expression. She showed neither disappointment nor any hurry to comfort him. She simply set down her cup and looked at the lamplight. She seemed long accustomed to him speaking this way, and also accustomed to not necessarily needing to give an answer. One night, when it was already very late, he suddenly said, "I feel more and more that all of man's labor under the sun is only temporary. We think we have grasped something, but in truth, nothing truly remains." Helena asked, "Then why do you still write those words?" He looked at his own hands and said, "Because if I don't write them, I can't think clearly either. By writing them down, at least I can see how far I've already thought." I stood outside their conversation and listened to these words. I did not feel shocked, nor did I feel sorrow. I simply saw a person who had walked every path he could try, and finally stopped at a very ordinary conclusion. Most things eventually pass, and they pass faster than one imagines. At the end of the dream, Helena rose and left. She walked to the corridor. The night wind made the lamp flame lean for a moment. She stopped walking and did not look back. The man remained sitting in his original place, looking down at the empty space in front of him, as if he still needed to continue thinking. I woke from the dream. The light outside the window was already bright. There was no revelation and no conclusion. I had simply seen once again that some people exhaust every method searching for meaning, only to finally admit that meaning is unreliable. And those who admit this still have to continue living. The stone is still there, and people are still pushing it. That is the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future updates. See you next time. Thank you.
It's getting boring, no, we'll I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. Yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. 모든 남은 주고 뺏겨. Oops, 싸납게 차갑게 속없는 싸가지. Everyday I say 사랑은 no way. 필요 없는 you. Get on my level. 뜨거운 level. 차갑게 반겨줄게. Yeah, yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. 모든 남은 주고 뺏겨. Oops, 싸납게 차갑게 속없는 싸가지. Everyday I say 사랑은 no way. 필요 없는 you. Get on my level. 뜨거운 level. 차갑게 반겨줄게. Yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. Yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. 모든 남은 주고 뺏겨. Oops, 싸납게 차갑게 속없는 싸가지. Everyday I say 사랑은 no way. 필요 없는 you. Get on my level. 뜨거운 level. 차갑게 반겨줄게. Yeah, yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. 모든 남은 주고 뺏겨. Oops, 싸납게 차갑게 속없는 싸가지. Everyday I say 사랑은 no way. 필요 없는 you. Get on my level. 뜨거운 level. 차갑게 반겨줄게. Yeah, I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. Oops. I'm a heartbreaker. I'm a heartbreaker. Oops.
준비했어 all night for ya. 새벽부터 my vibes for you. 머리부터 발끝까지 got it all right for you. 급하게 서두를 필요는 없어. 떨려도 두려워할 거는 없어. 어설픈 너의 몸짓 짙어져가는 눈빛 yeah. 새로워진 you and me 깊어져가는 우리 yeah. Got me on my back yeah. 내가 왜 이래도 대체 Got me on my head yeah. 하루 종일 집중이 안 돼 All up in my feels 아름다워 내가 봐도 내가 놀라워 All I do is 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 dream of you yeah. Ooh yeah love you down oh baby Ooh yeah love you down oh baby 오늘 같은 날이라면 모든 꿈이 이루어질 거야 yeah. Make that heartbeat flutter 비교가 안 돼 no other 위험한 여자라 좋아하지만 But I never leave your side 다 알잖아 I'm always ride or die 그래 나만 바라봐 baby You and I 더 뭐가 필요해 baby 끊임없이 talking stay up all night 시간은 이렇게 보내요 tonight 어설픈 너의 몸짓 짙어져가는 눈빛 yeah. 새로워진 you and me 깊어져가는 우리 yeah. Got me on my back yeah. 내가 왜 이래도 대체 Got me on my head yeah. 하루 종일 집중이 안 돼 All up in my feels 아름다워 내가 봐도 내가 놀라워 All I do is 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 dream of you yeah. Ooh yeah love you down oh baby Ooh yeah love you down oh baby 오늘 같은 날이라면 모든 꿈이 이루어질 거야 yeah. 준비했어 all night for ya. 새벽부터 my vibes for you. 머리부터 발끝까지 때까지 got it alright for you. 길을 잃지 않아도 넌 티가 나. 숨기려고 해도 환히 보여 난. 아닌 척을 해도 너무 빛이 나. 그런데 모르는 사람은 왜 너뿐이야. 자신감을 가져 자신감을 가져 Girl won't you be yourself. 걱정하지 말고 불안해하지 말고 Girl tell me love yourself. 있는 그대로가 perfect. 누가 뭐라 해도 perfect. 세상 사람들이 너를 외면한다 해도 너는 누구보다 완벽해. 이 세상에 하나밖에 없는 You're so perfect. 특별하게 너다운 게 Say it with me perfect. If you didn't know, no, you're the baddest. You should know, no. 너는 내게 너무 완벽해. 나는 내가 관리 내 속마음 mind and body. 긍정적인 사고 Now tell me who will stop me. 자기 비하 stop me I talk me up 작은 흠 한두 개쯤 절대 개의치 않아. 사람과 사람의 관계 Raw beauty comes from the inside. 속에서 우러난 배려가 남기고 가는 향긋한